What inspired you to create Until, and how did your background in consulting and startups influence its development?
So I started Until because I was fortunate enough to have the impact of the brilliant health and wellness practitioners. So I started Until because I found myself being on the other side of the table to a bunch of brilliant health and wellness practitioners. I was able to benefit firsthand from their knowledge, their insight, their passion. And when I looked closer at the business model, it wasn't built to help them build a business. Often a lot of the money that I was paying them wasn't going to the individual practitioner. It was going to a brand or a middleman. And so, I wanted to build something which put the power back in their hands and unlock their potential. So Until was really focused on providing the physical services and the digital infrastructure to help them grow with their businesses and their personal brands.
Cool. So you mentioned that the health and wellness market is broken. Could you elaborate on what you meant by that? And I guess what Until is trying to do to address those specific issues?
So I think the health and wellness market is broken in a couple of ways. One is right now it's very fragmented. And so as a consumer, your physical health, your physiological health, your mental health is all connected, whereas you're speaking to different practitioners in order to solve it. And so you get a very broken, disjointed experience. And sometimes because the left hand isn't talking to the right hand, you're actually getting conflicting advice. And so as a consumer, that experience in this world where we know how important holistic health is doesn't really make sense. And I guess more, the other reason health and wellness is broken is because the value that the consumer is paying is often not going to where they're receiving value from. So, it's a lot of that capital, a lot of the cost associated with that is for brands or for spaces, and actually, we feel like that needs to foundationally change. And so as a result, we built Until to do two things. Firstly, to integrate health and wellness. I don't think consumers will think about their spend differently, whether you're spending it to get fit in a gym or whether you're spending it on your mental health. It's all about wanting to feel better, to look better. And so we think that will integrate into a new category. And we're referring to it as well care. And so Until is about building an ecosystem for well care to operate in and ultimately serve practitioners, help them grow themselves from individuals to teams to then enterprises. And so that's our ambition and that's our vision.
What marketing channels or strategies have you found the most effective for medical professionals?
So we often find the way the industry operates that medical practitioners are not very specific in what they do. They'll operate within these broad specialities, which are ultimately for a consumer they don't understand. So if you say to a consumer, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, they're unlikely to know what that means. And so we spend a lot of time encouraging our medical practitioners to start thinking about what is their message, who are they solving, how are they solving it for them, and actually really helping them niche down. Right. So if you are addressing pain, what sort of pain, who is your customer base, what are you passionate about? And so we do spend a lot of time encouraging them. One of our practitioners is a specialist in headaches. And so actually he's a neurologist who helps people with resolve migraine challenges, but he's spotted that issue and refers to himself as the headache clinic. And so I think medical practitioners need to figure out how they speak to consumers and make sure that they speak to them in a language that they can comprehend. In terms of channels, I think the channel that's often most overlooked by these practitioners is referrals. Far easier to get a client to come if someone refers them to you. And I guess those referrals don't just have to be customer referrals. They could be other practitioner referrals. So build your network, build your relationships, be really clear what you represent. And then look, finally, personal brand isn't any more focused on fitness influencers. More and more medical, dental practitioners are going down that route. So really thinking about what content are you putting out in the world? Because as consumers now, we spend our day inundated with content. And so you need to put your message out, and that's a critical way. And that content can get picked up in, it's not just about social media, it can be used in a myriad of ways. Become known for something, and that will often lead to a pretty successful business.
What are the common challenges that self-employed healthcare professionals face, and what would you recommend to overcome those?
I think that one of the biggest challenges we see with self-employed medical practitioners and professionals is how much time they spend working in the business versus on the business. And when you come from a world where you haven't had to worry about your customer pipeline and your primary focus is solving your clients' needs, it's very easy to just spend all your time trying to focus your head on that. And actually, you need to make sure as a business owner, you're now investing sufficient time, energy, headspace on the other elements of the business. And often, when we talk about the other elements, practitioners go to marketing. Marketing is important, right? Without customers, businesses die. And so it's a critical part of it. But equally, it's important to start thinking about the systems and operational elements of running a clinic, because if your marketing channel is successful, it will lead to a pipeline of clients that you then have to manage. And so we've had practitioners who have somehow fortunately created some content which has gone viral. All of a sudden, they've been inundated with customers, whether it's through email, whatever channel they were accessible via, and they're unable to handle the volume. And so they basically leave tens of thousands of pounds in emails because they just don't go back quickly enough. And so really thinking about your customer journey, how you're going to respond to clients, how you're going to manage them, how you're going to manage payments. Basically, how are you going to remove the administrative burden of running a business? And there's a myriad of ways to do that. You can get support now. It's much easier to hire international talent to do your admin. AI is a fantastic tool and is picking up a lot of solutions, but also figure out what you're good at and what you're not. And I think, the other challenge is when a practitioner goes from a salary job into private practice or into their own business, they're not comfortable investing in their business. And so you have to invest in your business. You have to bring in experts, and don't expect the first expert to come in and solve all your problems. Sometimes it takes some time and some investment, but you have to keep investing in bringing people into your business that know more about how to run it than you do, and look at it as a way to allow you to focus on the stuff that you're good at. No one's going to come to me to ask them to do a diagnosis, and in the same way, they shouldn't be going to them to ask them how to run a business. And so they should be thinking about the team they put around themselves. It's funny because now increasingly investors have in the last 6 months seen this opportunity to start solving problems for practitioners because they see the opportunity. And the traditional ecosystems like hospitals, like clinics, businesses like, HCA, if I'm honest, they're now no longer able to serve their client base in the same way. And so it's going to change massively.
Community seems like a very central part to Until's mission. How do you actually foster an environment where dentists, physiotherapists, doctors can all work together and help each other with their growth?
We often get asked how we've built the community at Until, because naturally it is multidisciplinary to an extent that's not seen anywhere else. The truth is it all comes down to selection of the practitioners. I'd be lying if I said that there was some secret sauce, but our secret sauce comes down to making sure we choose practitioners who are of a certain quality. They have a growth mindset, so they're not trying to be all things for all people. They want to collaborate. They believe in a multidisciplinary team. And then finally, often they have a specialism within a specialism. I think it's an important facet. When we started the business, you can imagine lots of people said, well, how can you have a space which is going to be full of personal trainers or full of physios or full of GPs? Won't they be competing with each other? Whereas by encouraging them to find a specialism or to find something that they're passionate about, they're going to execute that better than anybody else. And so as a result, they collaborate much more effectively. The other thing that I think has been pretty effective in driving community is just education, right? Just because someone's in the health and wellness sector definitely doesn't mean that they'll understand what you do or how you do it, because often it's not just what you're doing, but you'll have a technique, you'll have a knowledge set, you'll have a way of serving clients, and it's the combination of those things that's really, really important. And so I think my advice often to new members joining the community is find a way to put yourself to run an event, to share more about what you're doing, to find a way to engage other practitioners. I had a coach who recently joined who wanted to put on events around how she advises her clients to manage pain. Super relevant, right? Because all of a sudden she's approaching the client's challenge with a mental health mindset versus a physio who will approach it with a physiology mindset, right? And so I think it's just about making sure that you're open to that point of view, but also actively engaging other practitioners and sharing your perspective. And that way you might learn something as well. And so I think, the practitioners that have come to Until and essentially felt like they don't need to learn anything, they know everything, all they need is a space, usually don't get let in. But if they have slipped through the net, they don't last long, right? Just because that's just not the energy that's going to work, right? If you look around the world at various industries, collaboration is a foundation to communication, and so the only way you can collaborate is if you know what other people are doing, you've educated other people on what you're doing, and you find opportunities to work together.
Can you share the success story of a medical practitioner whose business transformed transformed after joining Until?
Yeah, I mean, the first medical practitioner that comes to mind in terms of success story at Until is Dr. Johnny Betteridge. He's a very well-recognized and well-known ER doctor who then has gone into cosmetics, and he's just done brilliantly well because he has not only come out of what was a pretty stressful job in the NHS and built a thriving business, but he's been able to build a huge following on social media. He spends a lot of time being able to think about what content his followers are interested in. And, the reason why I think he's a success is he's scaled from just him working a couple of days a week to now he's got a team and he's able to spend more time doing the stuff that he loves. But equally, he's hired some fantastic practitioners and grown his business as a result. So, he's a great example that comes to mind when you talk about success.
How do you foresee Until evolving to meet the needs of health and wellness practitioners?
So as the health and wellness market continues to evolve and develop, we see our role not just in serving the practitioners with physical real estate, we see our role in helping them think about their business much more comprehensively. And so, sure, we want to be the space that they run their business from, but we also want to be the platform that connects them with brands, that connects them with suppliers, that helps them think about their business more holistically and gives them ways to earn income outside of the traditional channels that they're in. Ultimately, over time, I think Until will service the industry as a whole, where we'll have a response where the consumers will think of Until as a quality benchmark and practitioners will aspire to work within our facilities, but equally benefit from some of the other services and the partners we work with, right? I mean, what I don't think Until should become is that trying to do everything for everyone. I don't think we'll do them well. I don't think we'll be world class at everything. But what I do want to do is build effectively an ecosystem where we work with the best. And so whether that's coming to you for marketing, whether that's going to a diagnostic provider for bloods that we have vetted and we have special rates for, I think it's the kind of, I see Until as the infrastructure for the industry over time.